Welcome back to another director Q&A hosted by Wildscreen. Today I'm joined by the fantastic Natalia, who's the director of Hypha. Hello, Natalia.
Hi.
Could you let me know where in the world you're joining us from today?
Yeah, right now I'm in Santiago, Chile.
Ah, lovely. So I'm currently in Bristol, but it's fantastic to hear where all of our official selection directors are from, because we have across the world joining us for these. So just before we get started, obviously you're the director behind Hypha. I'd love to hear about a brief bit about your experience and maybe what other immersive or sort of filmmaking productions you've worked on in the past, leading up to this project.
Right. So I've been working on media, film, and interactive installations, and I came across VR, and I thought it was the perfect way to tell stories that were that had a point of view of something that was not human. So it's something that I've been focusing on for a few years, and that's how Hypha became a reality. How would you feel if you were a mushroom?
I understand as well on this project there was a kind of whole team behind it that ranged from animators, filmmakers, designers, and then I think mycologists as well. So sort of specialists. How was it to work as part of that kind of team where everyone had such unique specialists and interests?
Yeah. I mean, Hypha began as a project when I was at a residency at Museo del Hongo, Fungus Museum, which is a pop-up museum that deals that tries to tell the importance of the Fungi Kingdom through art and design. And during that residency, I met a lot of mycologists, and they were so passionate about everything they were saying. Like, mushrooms are their whole life, and that passion just came through me, and I thought it was the most fascinating world. And there are also a lot of designers and artists working there, which was very inspiring for this piece. Actually, this is Hypha's script is co-written with Juan Ferrer, who is the director of the Museo del Hongo. So we became very close in this creative endeavor.
It's fantastic. I feel like sometimes when you come across people who have that passion for nature, it's just infectious, and the more that you work with them, the more that it rubs off on you. So it's really cool that you found a way to sort of convey that and share it with other people through creating this experience, I suppose. So how would you, first of all, how would you summarize Hypha for someone who hasn't had the pleasure of experiencing it yet?
Good question. Somebody described it as a mushroom simulator, and I think it kind of is. It's accurate. So it's like a mushroom simulator, but it also does have a story. So you become a mushroom, and then you come from the outside. I mean, from space. And then you get to be a spore, and then mycelium, and then the final mushroom, which is how we know them, the cap and the stem. And so you live the whole life cycle of a mushroom.
And we were talking a bit about VR being a medium that you were drawn to be able to tell this perspective. Why fungi in particular? What was it that made you want to put everyone into the shoes of sort of mycelium and fungi?
Yeah, when we were developing this story, we thought of the best way to try to make people understand the importance of them as the bioremediation agents of Earth. So we thought that VR was the best way to embody the experience of being a mushroom, but also telling them all of the things that you have to do in order to remediate the soil. So you have to eat nutrients, you have to grow, you have to find others like you to mate and create more mushrooms. So VR was perfect for that, I thought.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of perfect way of using the medium, of literally immersing someone in in that perspective and in that role, so that you can sympathize with something that otherwise maybe you wouldn't have had any kind of empathetic feelings towards. So yeah, it's really, really impactful. And for any maybe prospective filmmakers or even scientists who would want to go into immersive storytelling, what would be your sort of key piece of advice for people who would love to try it out but don't know where to start?
Well, I think you have to try lots and lots of different VR experiences, because we all know that this is like a new medium, and there are a lot of ways in which you can tell the story. So I think, first of all, watch a lot of your experiences. And second, let's get on to production, like open up Unity, learn some Unreal, and then try to see what is that you can make with this technology. Which can be very experimental or can be very narrative, but something will come up while you're making, because you can imagine something, but then when you're making it, it doesn't feel how you thought that it would feel. So it's different than film, because in film we have much more clarity. Still, you have to be making to understand where you're heading, but with VR, I think there's still so many ways to tell a story that we need to explore, that just need to go there and make something.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good piece of advice. Just immerse yourself, try as much as you can, experiment, afraid to get things wrong, or I suppose even kind of reach out to other people who are in the community for advice. I'm sure there's lots of people who are happy to kind of share tips.
Yeah, that's also true. It's a very nice community.
I know we were connecting with Unity for Humanity, which I think is a really cool community of people who use that software and who develop different kinds of educational or nature-focused projects. And it just seems like everyone there was like really supportive and wanted everyone else to succeed in what they were doing. So it seems like it's a really nice group of people.
Yeah. I think there's not yet that competitive space as in other industries that you can see. It's more like a fight to get to do whatever you want to do. But still, in immersive, we're still exploring. So it's not, we're kind of in the same level. And that is something very nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. That it's still really supportive and collaborative as well.
Yeah.
I know as well that VR has different kind of hotspots all across the world. As you said, it's what's the community for VR like in where you are in Santiago?
It's small, it's growing, it's becoming something. I was out, I was living outside of Chile. I was living abroad, and then I came back and I felt like no one was doing VR. And I brought like all my equipment, and it was like so excited to show it to everyone. I was like, let's do this. So it took a while to find others, and now I feel like it's like in a more mature phase. Like, we are having VR events now, we have different meetings, we are creating a community, so things are happening now. I feel like it's a good moment to be doing VR here in Chile.
That's really nice to hear. It must be really exciting to see where it's going to grow and how that community is going to develop. So I guess even though you have connections and you can reach out to people internationally, it's really important as well to have a local community who are also supportive and really excited to see what you're working on. Yeah,
I mean, both. It's very necessary to have like this whole internet life, but once in a while you need to go meet people for real, 3D people in the real world, and try their whatever experiment they're doing right there, and like try to create a hackathon or something, or like a VR jam, and just like try things on.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good way of putting it, kind of taking off the headset and going out into the world and meeting other people. I also wanted to ask, in terms of, obviously with our official selection, we have, our programmers have worked to select a diverse range of storytellers who are telling these really original stories from an authentic voice. And obviously what comes through that is that we are providing a platform for storytellers who are otherwise kind of underrepresented in the rest of the community. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of, well, as a director, how do you feel that your identity and your heritage and your background kind of influences the way that you tell stories, and how does that come across in your production?
Sure. That's a great question, because Hypha is not really I don't think that you watch Hypha and you see like, oh, these people are definitely from Chile or even South America. But I do believe that it does have a lot of connections to how we tell the story where we are from. So first of all, we wanted to reach an audience that was not really related, or that was not really knowing much about mushrooms, and probably never worn a VR headset. So that's already a way in which we approach the story. So the story, it's very it's very weird to talk about a mushroom and become a mushroom and all of that. But at the end, we try to put on a very traditional structure. So it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's the heroine journey that has to, like, overcome these difficulties, and finally you as a sport met the others, etc. And there are other things that we put on that story, which is like believing that everything has a soul, not even just animals or trees, but also rocks, and also, enzymes and water, and everything can eventually talk to you.
Yeah, that's beautiful, the way that that's kind of permeated through your production. And in terms of, you mentioned about wanting to reach people who maybe wouldn't be I guess fungi super fans, or maybe who wouldn't be used to using VR equipment. Did you have specific goals when you set out to make this about, I guess, the local community or the international community that you wanted to reach?
Yeah, so I think the challenge was to make, like an artsy VR piece, but at the same time an educational VR piece. So I think it does have a little bit of both. It is somehow educational. What we ended up doing is developing a bunch of exercises that you can do with your students if you're a teacher. So the idea is that you watch Hypha and you make a class out of it. I mean, like a teaching session. And that's how you can relate it to the curriculum of middle school and elementary school. Is that how you call it? We call it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing we wanted to do is to create a story. So it's not just like giving you information, it is creating a story. And it was super challenging to try to do both. So it's, how do you make it engaging, but also kind of poetic, but also try to make it so people can understand what they're seeing. So I think it has a little bit of all of them.
But yeah, it's like a perfect sort of a Venn diagram. It's like the perfect sort of middle spot where all of those overlap. But it's really interesting to hear that it's part of sort of educational and teaching resources as well. I feel like that would be so inspiring, especially for a kid who kind of is mostly doing lots of writing and reading, to be able to then fully immerse yourself in this world would just, I think, just light up a room full of children and get them really excited again about studying fungi and the kind of plant world and all of these things that you don't have and aren't as sort of animated on screen if you're watching documentaries.
Right. And sometimes we do it all the way around. Like we put them on VR first, and then we give them the instructions. There's like, that what you saw was this thing, and they're like, oh wow, okay.
That's really
different approaches.
Yeah, it's such a clever way of doing it though, because you then have something to refer back to. So even if you haven't seen kind of much fungi out in the wild, what you've seen and what you've experienced is something you can refer back to when you're then learning about what all that was. So yeah, it sounds like a really cool project. Are you taking that kind of through schools in Chile, or are you going international with it?
Yes, it's been kind of slow because, you know, pandemics, and it was not easy until like this summer. Summer in Chile is at the beginning of the year, so it's almost a year that we've been showing it more in different instances, like festivals here, which was not something that was happening before. It was very restrictive here during COVID. So it's starting to get there. I hope to reach out more school principals, to reach out to be able to share Hypha with the educational community.
And if there are any schools, like any UK-based schools that would be interested in kind of working with that teaching package, would they be able to do that as well?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Reach out to us.
We'll obviously put your contact details in the video description so that anyone who does.
Yes, please.
But yeah, I feel like there are so many teachers right now that are kind of looking for these really exciting, innovative projects to help to spark that imagination with their children. So lots of potential there, I think. And in terms of your production, from I guess rough start to finish, how long would you say it took you working on Hypha?
A couple of years.
Okay.
A couple of years. So it was like 2 years. We started talking with Juan, who is the co-writer and co-writer and the director of the Museo del Hongo. And we started to talk about doing something together. And then he invited me to a residency. And he's the curator of the museum. So he basically hold my hand through this whole path. To tell me, it's like, this could be interesting, maybe we can take this path. And then I started talking to more mycologists, and I realized that we needed to talk about how important they are. As that basic, we wanted to talk about something very specific, the Bueller's drop, which is it's a way in which the spores are expanded. But at the end was like, we need to talk about the basics. Why are these so important? Why do people need to know more about mushrooms? And that's how we came up doing Hypha, which is for me like the beginning of a whole journey that I want to keep on with creating more VR experiences or XR experiences about fungi.
And throughout that process, those kind of 2 years, and even I guess afterwards, like when you first start seeing people experience the project, what was your, I guess, favorite moment of production? What was the one thing that will kind of always stand with you from that?
Oh my God, watching Juliana Furgi, who is the mycologist from Fungi Foundation. And she's like a fungi mycologist rock star. She's everywhere, and she's so cool. And she was experiencing Hypha. She was helping us with the research. And the first time that I saw her inside Hypha, she was just screaming. She was like, yeah! It was the best.
That must have been very fulfilling as for you, knowing that you kind of built this entire world, obviously with the help of the rest of the team, and just seeing her enjoy it so much.
And then seeing her just like have so much fun. She was enjoying it so much. She was like, I'm finally a mushroom.
You ticked off something from her bucket list, a dream of hers, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mycologists have the greatest time there.
Yeah, that must be a beautiful moment. I'd love to hear firstly what's next for the film, for the production. Are you kind of touring it around in any way, or is it going to be exhibited at specific places?
Yes. It's been in different festivals, in museums, well, now in Wildscreen. It was recently in VR Fest, Mexico, and it's next week is going to be at Narrar el Futuro in Colombia. And I don't have the next one in my mind, but I know there are some.
Okay, we can put up like a slide with the dates that where it's upcoming, so anyone in those areas can kind of make their way over and experience it.
Yeah, that would be great.
In terms of you, what's your next project? Are you working on the next VR production or anything else?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So with Nanai Studio, which is our production company, we are now developing two pieces. One is kind of like the next step of Hypha. It's called Symbiotica. We've been developing it for a while, but now we're changing paths. So Symbiotica, it's a multiplayer VR experience where different people would enter this space as different species that create a lichen. So you could be either fungi or bacteria or an algae. So the idea is that you understand how symbiosis is the way to thrive. And the other one that we're developing, it's a VR video game where you become a bat and you navigate the world with echolocation. And so we're all about the non-human perspective. Yeah, and there's a lot of other elements, story elements, but I'm not gonna dive into it now. But yeah, we really like to keep going, developing these pieces that are made with a non-human perspective. So we're always talking to scientists and trying to pick their brain. And I think it's very important because usually this knowledge is just trapped in, like very boring thesis. And everything is just like written. And the idea is that you have to show this knowledge.
Yeah, it's so important that there's someone there that can communicate that science and, as you said, like the research and knowledge away from just text into, I think, more visual and immersive medium, in order to get people to, like the general population, to want to engage with the content and to understand it. It's got to be kind of presented in a way that's really easily digestible. So I think it's really fantastic. There are so many filmmakers and obviously VR production makers that can communicate that and just kind of take the research, take the science, and just create a piece of art that makes loads of people connect with it, whereas otherwise maybe they wouldn't care about that knowledge or science. So yeah,
I think it's very important. And also one of the key elements, I believe, is not only the visuals. Like we think a lot about the visuals, but I do believe that's the story behind it, the story that you can create with all of those elements. It's the most important, because that's probably what you'll remember the most.
Yeah, definitely. The feeling of being the mushroom and kind of the journey it's been on, I'm sure, is what sticks with a lot of people who experience it. And in terms of the Wildscreen Festival and the natural history community, is there anyone who you are particularly looking to connect with or collaborate with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the other production makers, filmmakers, and the scientists. If you have something that you want to make a story with, or that you believe that it's very important for people to get to know, and you don't know how, you can reach out to us. If you want to make something that it's a non-human perspective, yeah, reach out to us, definitely.
And in terms of the best way of contacting you,
sorry?
In terms of the best way of contacting you, is that kind of via email, like a work email, or Instagram? What's the best way for people to reach out?
Yes, you can reach out to us at my mail, natalia@nanai.studio, and on Instagram, studio.nanai. Nanai is Nanai.
Perfect. I'll make sure we've got all those links in the description.
Yes, thank you.
To reach out. But I think that's all we have time for today. But thank you very much for joining me, Natalia, and it's been fantastic learning more about what went on behind the scenes, and obviously all of the hard work, all of the scientific research that's gone into Hypha, and also what's coming up next with your bat project. That sounds really cool. Keep us in the loop.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely chat.
Wildscreen Festival's film library is available until the 16th of December for all festival delegates. If you haven't yet got a ticket, you can do so by following the Eventbrite page in the video description. Take a look at all of the places where you can experience Hypha on the screen now.